Michael Schumacher left Formula One in 2006, and he left with the kind of record that makes other drivers look like they were just renting space on the grid. 91 race wins, 68 pole positions, and 7 world championships. All 3 of those numbers were unmatched at the time. And sure, stats matter, but it wasn't just about numbers. The man pulled Ferrari out of a 21-year title drought and turned them into a dynasty. It was more than dominance, it was identity. Ferrari was Schumacher. Then, just when the chapter closed, he cracked it back open. In 2010, at age 41, Michael Schumacher decided to return to Formula One. Not as a guest, not as a pundit, but as a full-time driver. And not with Ferrari, either. He joined Mercedes, a fresh brand, a new era, a comeback story waiting to be written. But here's the catch. 1 year after leaving for good in 2012, everything changed. A skiing trip in the French Alps turned his post-racing life into the most secretive and tragic story in sports. And now, more than a decade later, no one really knows what shape that story has taken. His condition, still locked away. His voice, still unheard. So let's go back and unpack how that second chapter even started, and why it didn't go the way anyone, including Michael himself, hoped it would. He signed with Mercedes in December 2009. But this wasn't just any team, it was Brawn GP, the one that had just shocked the world by winning both the Constructors' and Drivers' Championships with Jenson Button. And there was history here. The man in charge, Ross Brawn, had led Schumacher to his biggest successes at Ferrari. It was a reunion on paper. It looked unstoppable. Schumacher said his battery was recharged completely. 3 years away from the track had reignited something. He missed the adrenaline. The fire was back. And so was the pressure. From the moment the deal was announced, people started whispering no, shouting about an 8th world title. If he was coming back with the team that just won everything, what else would he be here for? But there was one major variable in that equation. Nico Rosberg, Michael's new teammate, 17 years younger, sharper, quicker, in his physical prime, and not intimidated one bit. Schumacher signed a 3-year contract and made his debut at 41 years old. The end result? Nico beat him in all 3 seasons, both in qualifying and in points, every single year. And part of the reason that happened? The car. Let's talk about 2010. The Mercedes W01 was built fast, but it wasn't built for Michael. It was basically a rushed version of the previous year's Brawn chassis, tweaked to handle the sport's new no refueling rule. The car had been designed for Button's style, smooth steering, balanced traction, tire-friendly. Michael didn't drive like that. Never had. His style was built on aggression. He liked a razor-sharp front end, something that would let him cut into corners and rotate the rear with control, even if that meant instability. That's how he built his legend. But in this car, that approach didn't fit. The numbers paint it clearly. In qualifying, Rosberg won the head-to-head 14-5, the average time gap. Schumacher was 0.246 seconds slower per session. On race day, it didn't get much better. He only finished ahead of Nico 3 times that season. His best results were P4 in Spain, Turkey, and Korea. Respectable, but not podiums. Final points tally. Rosberg finished with 142. Schumacher, 72. That's nearly double. Now jump to 2011 and 2012. Things improved, but not dramatically. In 2011, Schumacher's qualifying got even worse compared to Nico, but his race pace looked better. He was catching up. The final gap between them in the standings, just 13 points, and by 2012, Schumacher was finally racing on near equal footing. He was matching Nico in both qualifying and race pace. It wasn't dominance, but it was proof that the old dog still had some fight in him. The problem? Reliability and chaos. His weekends were messy. He was plagued with mechanical issues and the occasional run of just pure bad luck. Still, even in all that, There were moments that reminded people exactly who they were watching. Spa 2011. Schumacher started dead last P24 and clawed his way up to finish 5th. Along the way, he overtook Rosberg, who had actually led the race at one point. It was classic Schumacher, calculated, fearless, and tactical. Canada 2011. A wet race that let his old instincts shine. He kept the car planted while others slipped, and for most of the race, he was in serious podium contention. As the track dried, faster cars came through. But for a while, it looked like the Rainmaster was back. Valencia 2012, the podium finally came. Not his best drive in terms of pure speed, but a strategy masterclass. It was a race of attrition crashes, mechanical failures, and Schumacher and Mercedes played it just right. And then, Monaco 2012. This was the one, the lap. Schumacher set pole position in qualifying with a drive that made jaws drop. It wasn't a fluke, it was magic. Brake bias adjustment, mid-corner, one hand on the wheel through the swimming pool chicane, are you kidding? That lap has over 3.5 million views on YouTube now, and it's still the cleanest reminder of what the man could do. But he didn't get to start from pole. A 5-place grid penalty from the previous race contact with Bruno Senna meant that lap went to waste. It was both a tribute and a tragedy. And that became the theme in 2012. Schumacher's final year started strong, but the cracks were visible. He became inconsistent. Mistakes started creeping in. In Singapore 2011, he had a heavy collision. Then in 2012, same circuit, different crash. He completely misjudged braking and slammed into the back of Jean-Éric Vergne. That earned him a 10-place grid drop. And shortly after that weekend, in October 2012, Schumacher announced his second retirement. His words were simple: "I'm still able and capable, but it's time to say goodbye. And this time it might even be forever." There wasn't a title. There weren't race wins. But there were moments, flashes that reminded everyone why he ever mattered in the first place. And just a year later, everything changed again. December 29th, 2013. The day Michael Schumacher's life changed forever. He was in Maribel, a resort in the French Alps, skiing with his son Mick and some family friends. Nothing out of the ordinary. The weather was clear, the snow was fresh, and he had done this 100 times before. Michael was a confident skier, disciplined, cautious, and experienced. But that morning, everything went sideways. At one point, he noticed the daughter of a friend struggling in the deep snow just off the marked trail, so he veered slightly off course to help. That single decision set off a chain of events that no one could have predicted. Within moments, he hit the first rock, mostly hidden under fresh powder. It launched him into the air. He traveled nearly 10 meters before crashing headfirst into a second rock. His helmet shattered on impact. Not cracked, shattered. And yet, without that helmet, doctors said he almost certainly would have died on the spot. It was 11:03 a.m. when the accident happened. By 11:07, ski patrol had reached him. They found him conscious, but he wasn't himself. His speech was confused. His movements were erratic. At 11:15 a.m., a helicopter arrived and airlifted him out. He was first taken to Moutier Hospital. But the moment doctors saw how serious things were, they transferred him immediately to Grenoble. He arrived there by 12:30 p.m., and by then, the situation was already critical. He had a severe brain trauma, internal bleeding, swelling that was escalating fast. A coma was confirmed. It wasn't the kind of injury you walk away from. It was the kind where survival itself becomes uncertain. Doctors placed him in a medically induced coma to stabilize the swelling. The procedure wasn't optional. Without it, the pressure in his brain could have caused permanent damage, or worse. The medical team was led by Professor Jean-François Payen and Dr. Gérard Saillant, the same doctor who had known Michael for years and specialized in spinal and brain trauma. Even with the helmet, the injury had done serious damage. Michael had a hematoma on the left side of his brain and heavy bruising all around. The swelling was intense. Oxygen had to be carefully managed. His body temperature was lowered between 34 and 35 degrees Celsius to reduce brain activity and prevent further harm. He stayed in that induced coma for weeks. Slowly, as the swelling subsided, doctors began the process of bringing him out. But even after the artificial coma ended, he remained unresponsive, locked in a natural coma. There was no clear sign of what recovery, if any, would look like. In mid-2014, he was moved to Lausanne University Hospital in Switzerland, and eventually, he was brought home. From that point on, the door closed. The updates stopped. Michael's condition was never publicly detailed again. And that's where Michael Schumacher stepped in. She made it clear from the start, this would not become a media circus. She refused to let the press define her husband's legacy by his injury. No cameras, no interviews, not even close friends got through. Michael's former manager, Willy Weber, was denied multiple times. Even Rubens Barrichello, his former teammate, wasn't allowed to visit. People still tried. One journalist pretended to be a priest to sneak into the hospital. He was caught. In another shocking incident, a man tried to sell Michael's stolen medical files for $54,600. That man was later found dead in his Zurich prison cell before trial. Through all this, one person kept the Schumacher name alive: Mick, Michael's son. The kid who had grown up watching his father race now had his own dreams. He won championships in Formula 3 and Formula 2, proving it wasn't just about the name. He entered F1 in 2021 with Haas and stayed with them through 2022. After that, he took on the reserve driver role at Mercedes in 2023, the very team his father helped shape. Then, in 2024, he signed with Alpine for the World Endurance Championship. He's not just racing, he's honoring his dad. Mick's driven Michael's old cars, he's worn his racing gear in tribute, and he's spoken openly about the emotional weight of carrying the Schumacher name. In one interview, Mick said, "I'd give up everything just to talk racing with him again." And that one sentence tells you everything. Meanwhile, Jean Todt, Michael's former Ferrari boss, and one of the few people still allowed to visit, sees him regularly. "Life is different now," Todt said. "He's no longer the Michael we knew." Those are hard words, but they're honest, and they're probably the most accurate glimpse the public has gotten. There was one report in 2019 that gave people a brief moment of hope. Michael was reportedly taken to the Georges Pompidou Hospital in Paris for stem cell treatment. It was said he was conscious after the procedure. But beyond that, silence. Karina later gave a rare comment in the Netflix documentary Schumacher from 2021. She said, "He's different, but he's here, and he shows me how strong he is every day." That line stuck with people. Not because it explained everything, but because it explained enough. If this story moved you even a little, drop a comment below and make sure you're subscribed, because some legacies never stop racing.